It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's our favorite day.
Hey, it's our favorite day.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's our favorite day.
Hey, it's our favorite day.
Girl, you're not getting excited. Hey, Kiana.
Hey.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Connected Corner. I'm your girl, Tori Rose, the Connector, and I am here with the amazing and beautiful
Kiana B. And be kind.
And be kind.
Be kind.
I like it. They be like, we know they cousins because we can see what's in the be kind. And today, guys, we're not only going to be talking about being kind, we're going to be talking about being kind to yourself while you enterprise. We have an amazing guest. And before we introduce him, we're going to just give a shout out to our sponsors. So you want to do that first?
Yes, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors and media partners, Nick of Time Media, our studio, Radio on Fire, and WMEG Radio. And so you guys can go over and follow them on social media, Nick of Time Media, Radio on Fire, and WMEG. And you can find the Connected Corner on their platforms as well. So shout out.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. We love them and we are grateful for the partnership. I mean, this is just an amazing year. I cannot believe we're already 6 months into the year. Time is going by like this.
Yep.
Before you know it, we'll be singing Follow Out of Line Christmas songs and stuffing turkeys. And so this is a opportune time to really talk about Black enterprise. Anybody who's tuning in, guys, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. That means you go to youtube.com, or if you already have the app downloaded, you go to the search bar and type in The Connected Corner and you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're also getting notified for when we go live. You do not want to miss this. This is really news and resources that you can actually use. But Key, what do they actually have to do with it?
You actually need to use the resources. Okay. So we're going to bring them to you, but you gotta use them. So tuning in, tag your friends, let them know we are live. Get your pens, your pads, your papers, your journals, whatever it is, so you can write down this amazing information that we bring to you every Tuesday, regardless of the guest. I know I always learn something from our guests. And so we don't do this show just for us because we're already connected to the people that come in. And so part of this is to get you all connected to the people and learn some tidbits and nuggets and wisdom. Okay. So you got to use it.
Yes. And I have a quick joke for you. Why do you think it is that I can't do hot girl stuff? I can't do hot girl stuff. Why can't I do hot girl stuff?
Because you're too cold.
Because I can't stop eating fat girl stuff.
Oh my goodness.
It's choices.
That's cute.
Isn't that kind of corny?
It's about choices.
Yes, it's about choices. And today when we talk about leadership, we're going to talk about choices. We're going to talk about what it really means to know what it is you want to do. I want to do hot girl stuff all summer, all year. But what decisions maybe are we making that's stopping us from being able to make that commitment? Mine is shrimp cheesesteaks with bacon on it.
Okay.
Right. So that's how about you? Is there anything that's stopping you from maybe doing the things that you want to do or making those commitments that you want to make?
That I'm too committed. Look, I'm too committed right now. I'm trying to get some of my commitments off my plate so I can do a little more of the adventurous, hot girl, fun things that I want to do, like travel. With COVID, I feel like I have not done enough. So I'm overly committed. I'm gonna bring that back a little bit, scale back so I can get my travel bug back on.
I love it. And that's about choices as well. Awesome. So Kiana, tonight we get to talk about Black enterprise, the journey to success and nonprofit leadership. We get to talk about leadership. We also get to talk to somebody that's just so super cool. Like, I feel like I should just be cooler in his presence, right? So let's go ahead and bring up the amazing. You want to read his bio? You want me to read it?
Go ahead.
I shall. The amazing Sadiq A, who is serving as the founding executive director of Maryland Mentor. He is known as the mentor's mentor. Okay, hashtag that. Sadiq, there's so much I can say about you. I want to not read 40 minutes of your bio, but I want to pick out some specific things. I mean, it's like deep, and it's like, because I know you, I know it's real. There's times I'm reading other people's bios. I'm like, whose bio did they copy and paste? But not Sadiq's, right? You sit on a number of different boards and advisory groups. Even I know the work that you and I have done. You just helped me with an issue that we were having at Coppin Academy. You also serve on My Brother's Keeper for Baltimore's campaign for grade level reading, and the Maryland Out of School Time Network. You are a 5 or 6 time author. How many times? 5, 6 time author,
right?
Frequent keynote presenter and facilitator, former college professor, trained mediator, and results-based accountability practitioner. All right, guys, before I let Sadiq speak, I need y'all to put in the comments, I will be accountable. So Sadiq, coming to you, how many times have you been an author? 5 or 6 times?
We don't even keep track of stuff like that.
Don't even keep track at this point. This is a very loaded bio. Tell us a little bit, just jump right in, the word mentor. We hear that word used and abused. What does it really mean to be a mentor?
Number one, as I open up anytime I'm an invited guest anywhere, I always bring peace, bring blessings, and gratefulness, right, to you all, number one, as hosts and the creators of this platform, which I think is absolutely amazing, and I think gets at the core of what it is that we're going to spend the next couple of moments talking about. So I just want to give y'all some roses. Tory rose, I didn't even do that on purpose, but y'all can smell them, because again, so many times we talk all day long about the trash that folks ain't doing, and about the junk that folks ain't doing. But we don't put that same energy. We don't keep that same energy when we talk about what folks are doing, like y'all. So let me just open up and just send y'all some kudos and some love and some respect for this platform. So in terms of the question around mentoring, I think it's an amazing question. I think it's a great one to open up with, in that I think the core of mentoring is people that value relationships and the power of relationships. If you ask 100 people, right, what does mentoring mean to them, or what does the word mentor mean to them, you're going to get 100 different answers. But I think the common thread among all those different people is going to be something related to those folks valuing relationships and ultimately valuing this idea of service. Because to mentor, to be in community service, to be a connected corner founder, you gotta value service and putting somebody else ahead of yourself. Because I don't know about y'all, but there's a million things that I could be doing. Just like, matter of fact, I do know about y'all. There's a million things that y'all have done. And Tori, again, I know you well. There's a million things you have done, but service is a calling, and when you get that call, it's our duty to answer. So I'll just open up and just say, I think, a mentor is somebody that's there, that values the person on the other side of the relationship, that is there to serve and support and be there in really whatever form the job requires. So that is why, there's not necessarily in my mind a stagnant definition of what mentoring is. But when we insert those two ingredients, this idea of valuing relationships, and this idea of service, like, we can move mountains.
That's amazing. And thank you for those kudos.
Yes, thank you so much. And I really appreciate that answer. Well, the thing that I got out of that one is that I talk about all the time is relationship building, which is literally a conversation I probably had 3 times this week already. And that is about relationship building. And so I know Tori and I have had many conversations about, who we are on the earth, why we're here. And so in talking to someone and saying, hey, understanding those people you're around and building that relationship, that I get it now, why I'm here, why God placed me here. It is to serve other people. And so if you being close to me as a cousin, as a friend, as a mate, whoever it is, when I then look at those people around, Tori and I have said, well, it seemed like, these exes and these different people, once they go, it's not about you elevating, like Beyonce say, let me upgrade you. And so she puts it in that song. I sing that with passion, but it's an upgrade, honestly, giving God the glory, because when you look, it's about that attachment. And so they may not ever understand what it was that you did or what it was that, that relationship meant to them, but it's really about serving and giving those people what they need so they can elevate where God intended them to be. And so when you have these, connections and building these relationships, it's about serving those other people, and it doesn't matter what it is. And you have to mature. I know I did as a servant to mature, and I look at it like, well, they doing this now, and just understanding that that was the purpose of that relationship, is to take them where they needed to go.
Most certainly. That's a great point. So Sadiq, did you ever have a mentor growing up, or, how did you come into being a mentor? And while he is answering that question, guys, I want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are not already subscribed, make sure you go to the Connected Corner at YouTube. And also, you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on Instagram. And so Sadiq is going to tell us a little bit about how he became a mentor and if he had a mentor of his own growing up.
Yeah, no, thank y'all. Thank y'all for that. So me being in the youth development space, it was really like a roundabout path. But it really began with this idea of service, just like we opened up with. So my dad was a social entrepreneur. So we grew up in DC and PG County, and my dad growing up owned bookstores. So he had a chain of book. All right. Okay. So, pardon me. So this chain of bookstores, pyramid bookstores, it was all about him providing service to his community, because the whole premise of these bookstores, his tagline was books for and about people of African descent. So from day one, we've been African centered. We've been on that black stuff, as they say, right? And for me, that was a core component of who I was growing up, is making sure that I stayed in that black stuff, and that I took pride in that black stuff, which just became a part of who I was and what I represented everywhere I go. So fast forward a couple of years later, I'd grown up in that sort of retail sales environment. Still to this day, I love selling. I tell folks all the time, I don't care what business you in, you're a salesperson. I don't care if that's a relationship, or you in IT, or you in dog food. Even though you're selling dog food, you still need people, okay? And you're in the sales business. So, I just learned early on just to really value, again, people and interacting and relationships and salesmanship. Just really enjoyed that. And ended up going into retail after my time at Morgan State. So, I'm a proud Morgan alum. Go Bears all day. So I found my way to Baltimore.
And we just giving the Morgan Bears some love, but we representing some other HBCUs
right,
here, but we're gonna give our Bears some love.
A little bit of tech.
Yes, HBCU love is what it sounds like. HBCU, Bowie, Cop, and Morgan. We really got it all covered.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're good. So this time at Morgan, that's probably my Wi-Fi telling me to speed up, that I'm being long-winded. So my time at Morgan, I ended up going to work for Target, and again, sort of going through their leadership management sort of pipeline, if you will, and finding my way into a community service in that regard. So I ended up being like a community captain with Target and administering grants to the community, et cetera. But I haven't forgotten the original question either, by the way. It was that entire trajectory along the way of folks that pointed me in the right direction that entire time. So I had mentors at Target that were early there, right? To help guide and give me direction and feedback earlier in my career. Also, while at Target, and this is a good one for your listeners, right? I also had reverse mentors, aka those anti-mentors. What I learned not to do, right? Or I learned who I didn't want to be through some of those relationships as well. And I think Kiana, you alluded to this earlier, right? Folks are with us for a reason or a season. And when you are adept at, looking at people and valuing people no matter where they are, and just knowing that, hey, this person here to teach me with some lumps, and there's some people over here that's going to teach me with love. And listen, both got value. And it's our job to differentiate between the two and not stay in that lumpy relationship for too long, right? But to really focus on the love. So I've definitely been fortunate of having those sort of late career, early career mentors. And I would say definitely coming up, my dad, and just being in an environment where people loved and respected themselves and had pride. And again, their heritage, their culture, I think was powerful. And then growing up in PG County, right? So we, born and raised in DC, and then transferred over to PG County, right? From middle school, going through and having the opportunity. So, DC was Chocolate City, PG is Chocolate County. And what I tell folks all the time is that I had the fortunate, luck. It was nothing more than luck. And I think y'all know the statistics that say like something crazy, like 95% or it's like 90% or something like that of all students nationally will go through school without ever having a Black male educator. Even though research shows it's not just Black kids that benefit from having Black males in the classroom, all kids benefit, including white kids and Asian kids benefit from having Black men.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's, as us being educators, we've seen that. You look down the hall,
That's right.
You look to your right and left, and you're literally, it's almost unspoken. Mm-hmm. I'm leaning and gleaning and hoping to not be the only one in my department. And then I'm irritated. And just to be honest, if there's a Black male representation who is not standing up for the culture, not standing up for the students. And I know, Kiana, we've shared some stories before. I was irritated about someone that was in one of my previous departments, and I found myself in this grown man's face with my pinky telling him that he was more essential there than the principal. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't see himself as the essential foundational block that we needed. I'm like, yo, you're a cornerstone. And I need you to get together like ASAP, So he started calling me Miss Tori versus Miss Rose. He completely forgot where he was. But it's the accountability, because to your point, you are right. And there's so many studies about Black males being underrepresented, especially in the K-12. I don't think I had my first male of any color teacher until college, and it was HBCU.
Wow. Well, I know Kyle definitely spoke that. I mean, you said it's unspoken, but with my children, teaching them to advocate, my oldest, who is now 26, said to me, 4th grade, no discussion, no conversation, literally said, wow, Mom, I finally got a Black teacher. And so, it was something unspoken. We didn't even talk about it. Now, certainly I observed that he didn't have any Black teachers, but for him, at 10 or 11 years old, to come to me and say in the 4th grade, wow, I finally got a Black teacher. Yeah. He spoke it. He said it, and so that is part of because of, the pride in what was taught in the home. But, I was shocked. And so, I wasn't going to say it to him. I noticed it. So it speaks to much of who he is today. But it was like, hey, I finally got a Black teacher. And just seeing that interaction and how that changed for him, most certainly. I'm
going to give you a statistic on it. And I'm grateful. Sorry, my niece wants to be a co-star. I'm going to give you a statistic, and I'm glad that Sadiq actually brought it up. So this article was published during the pandemic while we were talking about the gaps in education and the virtual learning gaps and things. But it was published in 2020. It was performed in 2017. So in 2017, they identified that less than 2% of all of the teaching workforce from K-12 across the country were Black men. So less than 2%. But the study says a 2017 study by the Institute of Labor Economics found that low-income Black students who have had a Black teacher, man or woman, for at least 1 year in elementary school, so we're talking about foundation, right, are less likely to drop out of high school and are more likely to consider going to college, while still only 7% of teachers nationwide are Black. And so if anyone who's watching wonders why, when we're talking about Black enterprise, we have some of the guests that we have Sadiq A, who I want you guys to follow, get connected. At the end of the show, he's going to tell you how to get connected with him. This is crucial, not only to your well-being, but your children's well-being. Another thing, before I ask this next question, Sadiq, I want to say that you are probably number 4 of 6 that we've had recently on the show who are second generation entrepreneurs, second generation parents or entrepreneurs. If anybody who's watching doesn't understand why it's important for you to start your business, it is because you see the byproduct of your children becoming adults who go into leadership, who go into entrepreneurship, who start businesses and companies that are successful. This is what that's about. So thank you and kudos to your parents and Pyramid Bookstores.
I got to do a whoop whoop. Yes.
So Sadiq, what was it like going from the for-profit world, having those mentors and the reverse mentors, to nonprofit world? What happened that made you switch?
Yeah, great question. Enjoying the conversation. So I think a couple things. When you have those spiritual sort of awakening and those spiritual moments, again, it's our duty as these fragile beings and these little temporary bodies to take heed. And I definitely will say that again. My dad, one of my champions, one of my heroes. My dad passed away literally this year, 10 years ago, and right around the time of his passing, it was a series of those moments, just really questioning and asking myself, am I built for more? Am I called to do more? Do I need to do more? To those questions, all of which the answer was yes. So it took me on this path of really analyzing, as you all have already spoken to, and we were talking about before we got on the air and all of that, just around, asking yourself, what are you passionate about? But most importantly, because sometimes those two are not the same, what you're called to do and what you're passionate about, there might be some incongruence. And that might be a part of the creator's plan. So that's something else. Again, another convo for another day. But, I think as my dad passed, there was definitely that moment of just, life is really, really short. And every day, I think you got to check in. And I think this pandemic, as one of the primary silver linings, is that folks, I think across this globe, have been asking themselves very, very regularly over the last 15 months, is this it? Am I on task here? Am I on target? Am I supposed to be doing something else or something more? And I think that has been, for me, one of the most amazing silver linings to this whole sort of, damn near extinction level event that we've all been experiencing together, is that folks have been really asking themselves. I've been reading all the articles about early retirements and career switches and just so many different, there a lot of the HR experts and sort of economists and analysts are saying that we're butting up against, by the end of the summer, butting up against a mass resignation wave, right? Of folks just taking time off to reconsider and really dig into their next step. So all that being said, I did all of that when my dad passed 10 years ago. And I look back at the common thread, much again, like we opened up, and said, man, this idea of service was something that was really, really important to me. And It was at that point where I resigned my position at Target and armed with the inspiration of all the experiences I had from Target right in Mondawmin Mall. So if y'all know, right, if you know, you know, there used to be a Target at Mondawmin Mall way back when. And I was the sort of, if you will, the founding store team leader, right? The opening store manager for that store. So I opened that store way back in 2008 as the first store manager at that store, and just the experience of just working with community and bringing in our brothers, our young brothers who everybody says don't want to work. It's nothing could be further from the truth. But again, when we create an environment of love and accountability, Tori, that word you mentioned earlier, then again we can do some amazing things. But I knew from my time at Target, like, listen, I can't mentor 1,000 young men at one time. I can't mentor 100 young men at one time. But man, I could write a book. I could create programs. I could allow my legacy to shine through in some other ways. And that's what ultimately led me to write my first book, which was Millionaire Manners, dedicated to our young men, to really share with them some of the lessons that I had gleaned from some early successes I had in my career, which really centered relationships. So this idea of millionaire manners is, not about $1,000,000 per se, but necessarily about a millionaire mindset and somebody that values relationships as the true currency and not just money, because money comes and goes. But when you got relationships, right, you'll never be broke. Like that old saying, right? You don't have envy for the person that has their first dollar. You envy the person that got their first friend. So y'all
Yeah.
know all these no new friends stuff and all that. I laugh at folks if they don't got no 20-year friends. If you don't got no 30-year friends. If all your friends you just met last year, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, we look at you a little funny. So for me, it was some of those, listening to some of those spiritual moments, those quiet moments, and looking at what was going on, the signs I was getting into my life, I was having come into my life, but also looking at what I was passionate about, but also
Yeah, that was a good point that you made. Well, a couple of things with the millionaire manners. Immediately, when you said millionaire manners, I thought about, this teaching a quote from my children's grandfather used to say, taught that like character and manners will get you where money won't. And so, I've resonated that through my kids. Okay, you got talent, my old son, okay, you have talent, you have this, but you need the grind, you need the character, you need the manners, you need those things that are going to take
right,
you places where money won't. And so you can talk about what you don't have, or you can build the character that you need to get you where having
that's right,
money won't get you. And so that resonated with me, of course, with the friends, because I take friendship very seriously, right? So when we talk about friendship, I remember as a teenager, my oldest godchild, her mom, I had to take her to dictionary. And so we had a conversation about what friends was. And I made her read the definition of friendship. And so that has carried with me, into my adulthood, because again, it's that building relationships. And so you have to be intentional about your friendships and your space and, who you're bringing in, especially when you know that no matter who is around you, if mentoring is in it's going to spill out. Right. And so you have to have those friends and people around you who can receive it, who can accept it, who understand like that's your calling and that's what it is. And so that's important as well.
That was good. And I mean, so, I'm over here. So when you see me looking down, I literally bring a pad and pencil or pen to these all the time. And anybody who's watching, you guys know that I say, if you come and you don't have a pad, you don't have a pencil, you don't have a pen, then you already came to the connected corner with the wrong intention. And so
Yeah.
every single time you got to have the right intention, and you have to be intentional about getting something and gleaning something. Sadiq, you said, am I supposed to be doing something else, or am I supposed to be doing something more? And that alone just blew my muffin cap back blue, like Kevin Hart said, blew my top off, because that is a question that any state of life, you should be able to ask yourself. But more certainly during this pandemic, resources were scarce and jobs were uncertain and health was uncertain. That was definitely a question that I asked myself. Am I supposed to be doing something else? Am I supposed to be doing something more? Am I supposed to be doing something different? Or am I supposed to be doing nothing at all in this season? And so anyone who's listening, please glean that, write that down, and do a self-assessment. Now that we know how to quarantine, you should be able to put yourself in self-quarantine, self-pandemic. When you start to realize that you're not being fruitful or productive and you're not working towards the goals in which you have set for yourself, you're not waiting to count down for December 31st to resolve another failed resolution, but instead you now know how to self-quarantine. You don't need a pandemic to threaten your life to do so. That's huge. So share with us. We know that there's been some pivotal moments. It sounds like through the passing of your father, and we're sorry. We understand that pain firsthand. We've been there where God has called certain people home and it shakes you to action. You know, I say that shake to action. But through your life, tell us about some other defining moments or pivotal moments that got you to where you are today.
Yeah. Now that's a great question. That's a great question. You know, there's two other ones that I will mention, both similar. One's both somewhat cliche, but no less impactful. Um, and as a matter of fact, I'll start with the second one, which is obviously more important. But I would say the birth of my sons. So I have three biological sons and many more. I have a stepson, he's dope young brother. But I would say the birth of my sons, my biological sons, but from the perspective of this. So, my oldest was born when I was the youngest, right? So I became a dad in my 20s, okay? My youngest, I was the oldest, right? When I had him, right? When uh, his mother and I conceived him. And the juxtaposition, the contrast between my mindsets in becoming a dad in my 20s versus becoming a dad in my 30s is one of the most important lessons I've gleaned over the last several years, just in terms of how my mindset shifted, how the things that once enthralled me no longer enthralled me, how different conversations with my brothers became much different. Conversations that I had with the world became much different because I saw the world different. And in myself, I saw growth between my 20s and my 30s. So in your 20s, I don't know if y'all, became mothers. I know Tori, you got kids, you know what I'm saying? It's just a different ball game. And I think for a lot of times, for many parents, not just fathers and fathers specifically or mothers specifically, we don't grow our mindset to match the moment. We can't really chart our own progress in terms of where we were, where we are, and where we want to go. And I think for me, the lens of fatherhood, unlike any other lens, and I would say generally that of parenthood, but fatherhood for, again, me as a Black man in America with sons, there for me is no greater privilege or pressure than serving in that role. And it is my most important job by far and a critical pivotal moment for me. The other one, a distant second or close second, depending on how you look at it, was definitely the publishing of my first book. Just in terms of what that represented and the labor of love. And again, how I also had to grow in that process as well. So I really appreciate that question.
That was definitely a great question. And, I'm going to let Tori collect herself because I understand, what you're saying and how that relates. And we understand like the guests and things that we have here because we don't do anything without God in the midst of what we do. And so a lot of times when we have people say stuff, it's like people are like, are they reacting because you don't know the conversations or the things or the prayers? And then it's like we get a guest and it's like, what? And so, where even she is right now with the 20s versus 30s and, deciding to become not a mom again, but to, conceive and have children in this 30s stage. I'll let her speak on that, but I get what you're saying. I know for me as a mom of Black sons, when my oldest turned 18, people are like, what's that? I was so emotional. Like, I didn't even know why. I knew, but it was just like, I knew I would be happy, but I didn't expect to have like a full blown just, praise and tears and just emotional, because I don't think everybody takes parenting that seriously. And so for me, it was like, okay, now I'm a mom. And so I said to God, I'm like, I want to have all my children in my 20s. Like, I wanted to have all my kids by 30 because I'm a planner. And it was like, I need to have them by 30 because, and so I did. I had them all by 30 because in my mind, by the time I was in my 50s, then I would become a grandmother. And I wanted to be, my goal was always to retire by 50. So I already had this plan in my life, and, God has put his in there too, but in my mind, how things were going to happen. So I definitely understand like that concept. And then watching those around me, it is a difference, when you're having those children in your 30s versus 20, and the growth and, just seriously, like I think sometimes talking to some of my other counterparts who have children, or even as an educator, as teachers, it's like, y'all don't take this serious. Like, I'm not aggressive about it, but I'm real passionate about this, whether I birth them, whether, I'm their teacher. Like, I don't understand how you don't take this serious. Like, it's
Kiana,
lives.
let me add in one more thing real quick, because I didn't even give y'all the actual ingredient, because I've thought about, hopefully y'all can tell, I've thought about this a lot over the years and how I approach things. But the key word, the key missing ingredient from my 20s to what I have now in my 30s, and you just said it, Kiana, was being intentional. Then it was accidental. So one of my sort of life paradigms is what I'm doing intentional or is it accidental? If somebody from the outside looking in was to look at my life, would they say this man has intentionality in his life, or is he living a haphazard life? Right? Which is, again, shout out to Naeem Akbar and New Visions for Black Men and Visions for Black Men. Men plan. Boys fly by the seat of their pants and just get tossed about whichever way the wind wills, right? So me transitioning from, young man to like grown ass man, as they say, right? The missing ingredient in all of that was intentionality. So there's no accidents in what I do with my sons. Not a word that's spoken, or maybe sometimes like, you get upset. I ain't perfect. I'm working on me, y'all.
Right. We just got to go back and apologize at those
Right
moments.
on, right on. But I will say though, very few words are unintentional. Very few activities there's no thought in. Very few, hey, what's he watching? Who's he talking to? How's he talking to me? What's he look like? What's he seeing me doing? Very few haphazard, unintentional moments with my two youngest sons. We don't rock like that. My wife and I, we have a very clear-cut agenda and plan with those two little boys, and it has to do with our intention and our vision for them, which hopefully, Lord willing, in turn will become their vision for them as well. So I wanted to just throw that key word in there, intention.
That's awesome. I mean, we literally were just talking about that intentionality. And if anybody who's coming on the show or watching the show, and if you're catching it on the replay, if you don't come to the Connected Corner with a pad and a pencil or a phone or something to take notes, you're doing yourself a disservice. And so we love that. And yeah, I got a little emotional. I had to go off camera because I'm a G. I don't need anybody to know that, this big girl sometimes, but because I am, expanding my family. And I've had so many people say, aren't you almost 40? You having another baby? What is wrong with you? And as if our children are not our legacy and our lineage and the gift that God gave us to leave an impact in this earth. And I've realized that again comes from PTSD. It comes from slavery. It comes from traumatic responses. It comes from being pregnant with no plan. It comes from not being able to feed yourself or take care of your family. It comes from generational poverty. It comes from all of these things. And I'm not saying that we have put ourselves in these positions. But and we've shared a platform where I always say, if we don't know our history and where we've come from, we are going to repeat it. We're going to repeat it. We're going to repeat it. And so when people are so negative about children, not like my cousins and family members who know that I like to get on a plane, they're like, it's a baby coming? Not that. I mean, the people who are like, ugh, why would you want to give birth again? It's because they are poisoned against the sustaining and the growth of Black and brown children, and the necessity for us to populate the earth and to regain control over what God has called to be rightfully ours. And so it is extremely different for me, where Joshua's father and I was in my 20s, he was in his 30s, but Josh was both of our first child. And for us to come together and have this one son, this first child, I didn't know what I was doing in my 20s, but in my 30s, understanding that this is God's gift to me, and that I have a mandate to make sure that my children's children have a foundation. It's very different, and it's emotional because I take it personal. So thank you for that.
Different ball game.
Different ball game, different thought. We're going to come up into Key's questions in a second, but before we do, I wanted to give another statistic, and it was about the nonprofits in the United States. So you have a nonprofit, you're in nonprofit leadership, you're in leadership. Actually, can I derail my own question? Let me go back for a second. When you were at Target, do you remember an older lady who would always call for gnomes? It was like always like, if you get gnomes, can y'all put the gnomes to the side? I'm going to send somebody to come get my gnomes. 2009 and 2010, this lady used to always want these gnomes. Does that sound familiar?
It actually does kind of sound familiar a little bit.
So she was an older woman who she's actually in her 80s, almost 90 now. But I used to, and I was always a volunteer with like Meals on Wheels and things like this. But I have this thing of picking up seniors. And so she was a TT to me, and she was still trying to work. She really couldn't travel around as much as she wanted to, and her children were horrible. And so I would run to the end of the earth for this woman, and I would go to the store on Tuesdays and Fridays when y'all got y'all shipment looking for gnomes. And she would call and she would talk to the manager. She said, if y'all got any gnomes in there, put my gnomes on the side. And I would walk all the way to the back, far left, to the garden section to pick up her gnomes. And so as you were saying that, I'm like, I knew your spirit was familiar, but it makes sense. And it's funny how things are cyclical. So I'm the gnome girl. Anyway, I digress.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I actually do remember that. That is very funny. Yeah.
It is funny. It's funny. We thought this started at Terra Cafe. Look at how God does things.
Right. Small to more.
Small to more. How many nonprofits? There's about over 300,000 religious organizations on the books that are currently active. 248,000 school and education-based nonprofits. Again, this is just who is active, right? So we know there's over 1.7 million nonprofits on file in the United States. But when we talk about active, so looking at those numbers, foundations and grant-based, is it like 90,000 or more of active, meaning they're actively bringing in money. When you think about nonprofit, starting a nonprofit foundations, is it something that you think everybody should do? Is it something you say, wait, before you jump into this boat, know a little bit more about it? Tell us a little bit more about nonprofits, the creation foundation, and why you chose to go that way.
That's right. Yeah, great. Again, great question, and thank you for those stats. I try to approach stuff in a different, in a different way. When I tell people, especially in the mentoring field, but this expands to the general nonprofit sector, right? Is that, there's good news and bad news about nonprofits or mentoring programs. The good news is that anybody can start one. The bad news is that, y'all guessed it, you might have guessed it. The bad news is that anybody can start one. So what I tell folks all the time is labels, right? Labels get folks in trouble a lot, okay? And what I mean by that is we get so caught up in the label of a nonprofit that, ladies, we forget to friggin' find somebody and just serve them, which is the root, the base, the foundation of nonprofit organizations, is to find somebody and to serve the hell out of them. If folks just start there and put 90% of their energy there, the irony and what most folks don't realize is that all the accolades, the funding, and the resources will come. But the reverse is often our first step. And what I tell folks all the time is that in this business, you could be one of two organizations. You could be the shiny nonprofit, right? Back in immaculate, super sharp board of directors, you know, software and websites, and your programming could be garbage. Or you could be the program, right? Or the organization has started programming, got some impact results, might be, you know, just kind of getting to it. Their back end might be ugly, but they have found a niche, a community, a population, and they are serving the hell out of those folks. But maybe their back office is a little raggedy, as shout out to my big bro, David Miller. He might say that their back office situation is a little raggedy. But that's okay. You see, that's what you can work with. But if you got the shiny photo op, big board of directors, but really ain't doing sugar honey iced tea, those are the folks that you got to watch out for. And in reality, those are the folks that's kind of as the hood would say, you know, effing up the game. You know what I mean? Like messing up the game for everybody. So those are a couple of high level thoughts. Is just like, first and foremost, if you're thinking about starting anything, first get in the game and go and like actually experience serving those folks. Because you might realize you don't really like it that much. I want to start a mentoring program, but have I actually mentored? So I might want to start mentoring first, and then I might realize I don't actually like kids. I might be better served fulfilling my call to service by setting up the field trips or by tracking the attendance at the program or by going to the groceries and getting the snacks. Because guess what? We need that stuff too. I tell folks all the time, to volunteer at a nonprofit don't mean you got to get in front of nobody. You could just be answering the phone. That too, my friends, is service. So you got to figure out where in the equation you fit, because it's a multitude of ways to provide service. You could be the driver shuttling around the seniors in the minivan. There could be a multitude of ways, right, for you to serve. So the last two little tidbits I will share, right, is, so number one, find a group of people and serve the hell out of them. I just want to just drive that point home. You can worry about the 501c3 and all that stuff later on, because it's people in my paid in full, you know, swag. It's people that start GoFundMe's every day, B, that ain't got no nonprofit, but found an issue, jumped in the game, and guess what they got now? They got some money and a budget. Now you think they can't go and just hire somebody to start their nonprofit? Of course they can, but they found an issue and they jumped in to be part of the solution. And then they worried about getting money. Everybody want to write a grant first. I'm like, yo, who you working with? I mean, well, we developing the program. We need some funding. I said, for what? For what? So I don't want to beat that dead horse. Find a group of people, serve the hell out of them. Number two, build your team. Find some other folks that is as passionate about the issue as you are. Build your team so that way you got different folks to fulfill different roles. Again, through the vantage point of a mentoring program, because that's my world, find a group of young people. I tell folks all the time, stop coming to me with a program and you say you serving 8-year-olds to 28-year-olds. You can't do that well. You cannot do that well. Say you're working with 8 to 10-year-olds, maybe 10 to 12. I might even give you 16 to 19. But 8 to 20, 8 to 28, 8 to 24, 10 to 24. Stop doing that. Find a group of people, serve them, build your team, and then some folks can be the mentors. Some folks can set up the field trips. Some folks could do the paperwork. You start assigning roles. They still passionate about the mission, but everybody got their seat at the table and they each do a certain thing. Because I tell folks all the time, it's hard to work in your organization or your business and on your organization or your business at the same time. It's pretty much impossible. Find a group of people, serve them, build your team, then you look externally for all the different ways that you can expand your reach, and then you start building partnerships and et cetera, and then you find those other folks that's going to support the cause. And you can get your 501c3 and raise some money and do all that stuff. But stop putting the cart, you know what I'm saying, before the horse, and we're all going to be better off.
Tori did that because she wanted to fire me up. I'm just back here. She did that on purpose because my muffin top is going back. But I so appreciate everything that you said. And people understand that the information that Sadiq just said, those steps and what you're doing, it goes for any industry that you're in, nonprofit or profit. And so we want to make sure that, yes, we're talking about Black enterprise and we're talking about leadership and nonprofit, but understand, like, if you're going to be a leader, you need to be a leader across the board, whether you're a nonprofit or for profit. And that information you just gave, brother, it applies across the board. And so I just want people first to get that and understand that. Secondly, coming from a nonprofit leadership, I was back here, I was mumbling organizations and people under my breath, but I won't go there. But hey,
this is your show. You can do whatever you want. No, I'm just joking. Let me not start. I don't want to start no mess. I'm a guest in your house. I'm gonna stop that.
I'm not going to do that, but it definitely, like, I get the calls all the time of, aren't you a grant writer? Don't you write grants? Are you a grant writer? Don't you? I can't even tell you how many proposals I sent that I never got responses from, right? And so because people don't want to hear the truth. And so a lot of times, like, literally, I don't care where it is, because people know, okay, I've done nonprofit for over 20 years. And this is, and I fought not to be a part of it. Like, when I decided to go full-time entrepreneurship, I'm like, I'm an accountant. I'm going to just go that route. I'm going to keep doing my taxes and bookkeeping. And then God was like, no, you're not even going to do taxes anymore. I was like, what? No, that's how I make my money, sir. Like, we need to talk about that. Like, so it was a 3-year process, right? And so then it was like, no, you've been doing this 20 years for other organizations. I worked higher ed, Hopkins, and all these other places. And it was like, no, now you're going to do it grassroots and you're going to help those nonprofits who need the help. And so that became a part, development. So not just business development, but nonprofit operations and development. And so every time I want to start a nonprofit, doing what? And I'm gonna tell you, every time is mentoring. Mentoring who? Okay, here's a list of the 15 other mentoring young girls organizations. I need you to start there. How about that? Because you haven't, like you said, you haven't mentored nobody. Where are the kids that you taking to the movies at least on Saturdays? How do you get from sitting at home? Really, it's about people are now using nonprofit as a way to get money. The reason why they're starting with, I need to write a grant, because you think somebody just gonna you only have a program. You haven't done one point of work. Why would somebody give you money?
And they don't know that you write the wrong grant, it could ruin your life.
Yes.
You get that money.
Yes.
You'll be happy for a moment, but you'll wish very soon that you had never written that grant.
And got that money. Right.
And got that money and formed that relationship. As you were speaking, Kiana, do you remember us saying to some individuals, because we have a checklist, we sit with people, you're starting a mentorship program or you're interested in mentoring, you have how many nieces and nephews? Because I never see you with them. And so we understand that service starts at home. If you want to know if you like children, take your nieces and nephews, start there. They'll also tell you if they like you, because that is product testing, that's market testing, that's surveying, that's evaluation. You've never worked in a school. You don't have your own children. You don't know any of the children in your neighborhood. what is your real passion? And I'm telling you, Kiana and I would get so in the weeds with people they would say, okay, yeah, the passion is just, I want to make some money and I want people to be able to purchase my 501c3 so they can do parties and things. Okay. Now that you've been honest with us, because that is still very much happening in Baltimore City. Now let's go ahead and figure out if you're even the type of people we want to work with. That's one.
Oh my God.
And B, what avenue you should be taking, because what was the stats, Key? It was like 200 more nonprofits
250+ more a month in Maryland alone
that are founded every month in Maryland. 200 a month in Maryland. And then, so when we were campaigning, I would knock on the organization's door. I would call, hey, it says you feed 100 kids. I got 150 kids right here. You feed my kids? And they were like, oh, we're not operational right now. Okay, no worries. I'm going to report you. I just would not have the time and or the patience, because what people start to do is rape and rob the community. And now they're wondering why you hear nonprofit and people have a bad taste in their mouth. Right. But
and let me share one more thing. Let me share one more thing before the next piece. I know we running close to time, but one of the other sort of like critical points that I want to make is around, and we just talked about the experiential education, right, around what it means to be in a nonprofit or to volunteer, or Lord, you know, if you're called to do so, to start your own nonprofit. But recently, right, and this is, I'm gonna link this back to the parenting situation, right? And so parenting, these conversations around parenting, I'm very passionate about. And there's a number of books, you know, I can drop some book titles later on for like, hey, folks raising sons, Black boys in particular, like, hey, read these books. And so, but I always say that parenting is the most important job that we never get training on. And if you do get any training, it's from your parents, and that may or may not be great training, okay? So my whole point is that we got to educate ourselves about this work. So that being said, just recently, I'm talking last year, I went through for the first time nonprofit training. So there's an organization called boardsource.org, which is the nation's leading sort of online clearinghouse of information related to running a nonprofit. And there's a ton of information online around nonprofits. However, BoardSource offers a certificate of nonprofit board education. Tori, Kiana, I took this thing. I thought I had an idea. Yo, I'm gonna jump out there and say, just anecdotally, 80 to 90% of people running nonprofits or that are on boards of nonprofits have no idea what they're doing or what they're supposed to be doing. 80 to 90%, easy. Most of the time we get that OTJ, right? We get that on-the-job experience as a board member, board director, nonprofit executive. And Tori, what you just touched upon, like the legalities of it all, there are legal ramifications, right, to founding a nonprofit that does not do what it's supposed to do. Nobody owns a nonprofit. I cringe when I hear people say, I own a nonprofit. No, you do not. The state owns your nonprofit. You are the signor. You are the fiduciary for your nonprofit organization. You are not the owner of your nonprofit. And if you use a nonprofit as a personal piggy bank, you will go to jail or you will be fined. So this idea of people just signing up to be on boards because it looked cute, it looked cool on my resume, being a part of a board is a legal responsibility and it is deadly serious. So I just encourage folks to continue with the education process. Go to YouTube University. Nonprofit AF is one of the dopest websites. Literally, it's called Nonprofit AF, nonprofit as you know what. And it's a dope nonprofit leadership blog that was started by by a former nonprofit exec. But there are so many amazing resources. But my key thing is, again, educate yourself and don't take it lightly. This nonprofit world is not to be taken lightly. It ain't no get rich quick scheme like you alluded to earlier, Kiana. So I just want to throw that out there.
And I appreciate it because that is literally the conversations that I have. And so, you know, people seeking out and saying, oh, I have this nonprofit, they're getting foundation money or, you know, they're surviving off of donorship. Okay, so what you need me for? or they want to get grants, but they're sustained. Do they really want to go to federal, state government route and get money? Because now you're going to have them in your bushes and they're going to be telling you, so is that really what you want? Because it is about writing in, and I'm going to put my salary in, I'm going to do this, and, you know, we're going to get this money, and understanding. I have resigned from boards because executive directors didn't understand their position.
Oh,
And I will
yeah.
not
Y'all,
go
y'all
to
about
jail
to go
with
to
you.
jail. Oh, that's what's
Yeah.
up. Okay, yeah. Let me
Yeah.
just type this letter.
Yeah, let me go resign. Did you get it? It's signed. Let's email that date so they know when I was no longer here when it hit the fan. Okay, because Kiana, I'm not. No, not at all. I'm not gonna last. I'm thuggish out here. I'm not jail thug. Okay.
You said orange. I don't even like orange. I don't like orange. I don't like gray. I don't like blue. I don't like none of that.
None of that. So let me go ahead and resign because you're not understanding. This is not your for-profit business that you can do what you want. And so let me resign. And most positions I've had is treasurer positions, like, and you're not listening. And so yeah, here's my letter of resignation. I'm out because that is the conversation all the time. So I appreciate that. Audience member, did you hear that? It is important to understand that. And so yeah, that is mainly the conversation we have. And so we're gonna and we had like 2 minutes. We're gonna and I'm gonna cut it short, but normally we do 3 questions. I'm gonna do 2 questions for you, Sadiq, because we have really covered a lot and you have honestly answered a lot of information. So we appreciate the knowledge that you're giving to our viewers today. And so we're gonna do key questions. And I'm just do 2 of the questions. So you'll actually have 2 minutes to answer the 2 questions, and I'll start the timer after the first question. All right. All right. So the first question is, how do you measure your success?
Got it. So personally or professionally? Can I ask a clarifying question? You mean like
Either one. You can take either way.
you
You
know,
can do
so
a little both. You got 2
yeah,
minutes.
okay, right on. So
Don't forget.
I'll just say, you know, having some sort of strategic plan, right, which has some goals and some steps laid out for how you want to reach those goals. I think in the nonprofit space and in the business space, you have both what are called inputs that you can measure and you have outputs that lead to outcomes, right? So an example might be, you know, to use that the childhood hunger example, I might say, hey, I want to feed a certain number of young people, right? But in order to feed those young people, I have to do a certain number of outreach in order to get the food, right? Or to, you know, a certain number of fundraisers, we have to get some donated items in order to raise the money to feed the kids. So my inputs might be number of fundraising events in order to raise this amount of money in order to purchase the food to feed these kids. So you know, you can measure a combination of your inputs, your outputs, and your outcomes on your path. And in our organization at Mentor Maryland, DC, and I will throw in a plug if anybody is interested in starting a mentoring program, holla at us. We don't got all the keys, but we got some keys. But again, in our organization, we just completed a strategic planning process, and you know, it's complete with some big goals, some strategic priorities, and some benchmarks along the way.
Absolutely. Good answer. The second question is, and you got a few seconds left. How do you know you're walking in your purpose?
Woo!
You got 30 seconds.
You got to check in every day. I'm gonna keep that one brief. You got to check in every day with the creator. You got to read the signs, and I think you got to surround yourself with dope folks that's gonna give you some insight into whether or not that's the case. So those would be my
Perfect.
2 pieces.
Look, that last drop. I know that's good. You did that. Boom. So thank you so much. We appreciate having you. You guys, if you're watching,
Appreciate y'all.
Subscribe into the YouTube channel. If you're on Facebook, go over to YouTube, type in the Connected Corner, subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell so you get notification when we go live. You don't want to miss the news and resources that we have for you. This has been great. You can go back and watch the replay. Make sure you get all the quotes, the notes. We got them. We putting some of these things on memes, and we're going to have them posted that Brother Sadiq gave us today. And so we thank you so much for your time and just all the knowledge and information you dropped for us today
Pleasure.
about nonprofit leadership.
Pleasure. Appreciate y'all. Keep
this
doing
time
what
my
y'all
brain
doing.
work. Mine is all over the
No worries. So Sadiq, as Kiana said, this has been powerful. This has been amazing. Please, please, please tell the people where they can find you, how they can get connected to you, any social media handles and things you may have.
Awesome. Personally, another conversation for another day. I'm not that active on social media at this time, but the pages are all still there. So feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active. So LinkedIn, Sadiq A Ali at LinkedIn. My personal handles are @ the Sadiq Ali Show, @ the Sadiq Ali Show. And my organization is Mentor Maryland DC. So that's @ Mentor MDDC everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of that. Mentor Maryland DC. Just holler at us.
Awesome. Thank you. I can't wait to hear your speech, your graduation speech that you did for the seniors of Coppin Academy. Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear it. Thank you again for being a guest. My name is Tori Rose. Guys, you can connect with me on social media at Tori Rose or Tori Rose the Connector. Kiana, how can we find you?
You can find me on all social media platforms as Kiana B. Jones, IG, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of that, Kiana B. Jones. And thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your support. This has been the Connected Corner, and we're out.
Peace. See y'all next Tuesday.